In 1974, a film was released with no score, no supernatural explanation, and no mercy. It was based loosely on real events, and the killer at the center of it still unsettles people 50 years later. Today, we are going to talk about why. If that sounds like something you want, please make sure you're subscribed before this is all over. He does not stalk you slowly. He does not monologue. He does not give you a chance. He just comes through the door, and then it's already over. In the summer of 1973, 5 young people drove into the Texas Hill Country and never came back. No ransom, no negotiation, no explanation. The local sheriff's report was brief, the kind of brief that means someone decided not to look too hard. What they found at that farmhouse did not fit neatly into any category law enforcement had for it. It was not a serial killer operating in isolation. It was not a cult in any organized sense. It was a family, a unit, a system built around a single brutal function: survival at any cost, using whatever or whoever was available. And at the center of that system was him, a large man, a quiet man, wearing someone else's face. The question everyone asks, the question you are asking right now, is the same one investigators, filmmakers, and horror scholars have been circling for 50 years. What made him this way? The answer is not simple, but it is knowable. Let's start at the beginning, because the beginning is where everything goes wrong. In the continuity established by the 2003 and its 2006 prequel, Thomas Hewitt was born in a slaughterhouse in Fuller, Texas, on August 18th, 1939. His mother was a worker at the plant. She died in labor on the killing floor. A supervisor found the infant and threw him in a dumpster. He was retrieved by Luda Mae Hewitt, who raised him as her son. From the very first moments of his life, Thomas was defined by abandonment, by industry, by violence. He did not choose the slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse chose him. He grew up large and physically powerful, but he also grew up with a severe skin disease that disfigured his face throughout childhood and into adulthood. The condition was real. The humiliation it caused was also real. Children are not kind. Adults in rural, mid-century Texas were not particularly kind either. By the time Thomas was a teenager, he had largely stopped speaking. Not because he was incapable, but because the world had given him very little reason to try. He worked at the same slaughterhouse where he was born. Blair Meat Company. Doing the work that the machine required, killing cattle. He was very good at it. In 1969, the plant closed. Automated machinery had made workers like Thomas obsolete. His supervisor, Charlie Hewitt Sr., told him that his face was being replaced by a machine, and in the same breath, insulted him for the last time. Thomas picked up a sledgehammer and ended the conversation. That was his first kill. It was also the moment the family's trajectory locked in. Charlie Hewitt Jr., Thomas's uncle, the man who would later be known simply as the sheriff, looked at what Thomas had done and did not call the police. He helped clean it up because Charlie understood something the rest of the world didn't. Thomas was an asset. Thomas was a tool, an extraordinary, terrifying, and completely loyal tool. All he needed was direction. This is the part that people remember. This is the part that makes Leatherface different from every other horror icon in the genre. He wears a mask made of human skin. Not a Halloween mask, not a prop. Human skin, cut and dried and worn over his own ruined face. The question is not just how. The question is why. Thomas Hewitt cannot communicate in the conventional sense. He does not use language with any reliability. What he uses instead is his appearance, specifically the faces he wears. Researchers and analysts studying the original 1974 film have noted that Leatherface maintains distinct masks for distinct roles. There is a mask he wears when he is performing domestic tasks. There is a mask he wears when he is presenting himself to the family in a more feminine register. And there is the killing mask, the one we see in the opening moments of every encounter. These are not costume choices. These are communication. He cannot tell you who he is in a given moment, so he shows you. The skin mask is the most disturbing expression of something almost pitiable. A man who was so thoroughly stripped of identity by his birth, by his face, by his family's use of him, that he built himself a new one out of whatever was left over. Literally. Leatherface is not the predator. He is the instrument of one. In both the original Tobe Hooper continuity and the 2003 remake line, the family is the functioning intelligence behind the operation. Grandpa, the hitchhiker, the cook, the sheriff, Luda May. These are the people who make decisions, who plan, who manage risk. Thomas does not plan. Thomas executes. When Sally Hardesty and her friends arrive at the farmhouse in 1973, it is not Thomas who sets the trap. He reacts to intruders. He does what he has always done. He protects the family's territory using the only skill set he was ever given. The chainsaw itself is not incidental. Thomas grew up in a slaughterhouse. The chainsaw is the logical extension of the bolt gun and the sledgehammer. It is a work tool. He is, in the most literal sense possible, doing his job. That is what makes the original Texas Chain Saw Massacre so effective as a horror film and so disturbing as a character study. The threat is not supernatural. It is industrial. It is labor. Tobe Hooper said in interviews that the film was partly a response to the violence of the Vietnam era and the mechanized brutality of the meat industry. Thomas Hewitt is not a monster who emerged from nowhere. He is a product, a byproduct specifically, of systems that process living things and discard what they cannot use. He was discarded at birth. He was discarded again when the plant closed. The family was the only system that kept him. And he was loyal to it, the way working dogs are loyal. Not out of ideology, out of the simple, brutal fact that they were the only ones who didn't throw him away. Let's be precise here, because the film and its prequel are actually precise, even if that precision is easy to miss. Thomas Hewitt does not display the classic profile of a sadistic killer. He does not appear to enjoy the suffering of his victims in any protracted way. He is not a torturer. He is efficient. The family is the torture. Grandpa, the dinner table scene, the hitchhiker with his straight razor. These are the sadists. Thomas is the closer. What Thomas does display is profound anxiety. Watch him in the original film after he kills the first two intruders. He is not calm. He is not satisfied. He is panicking. He slams the metal door. He paces. He looks out the window. He is scared, not of the victims, of what their presence means. Exposure, disruption, the threat to the family unit that is the only stable structure his life has ever had. The violence is not the point for Thomas. The violence is the solution to a threat he cannot process in any other way. That does not make him less dangerous. It makes him more dangerous because he cannot be reasoned with, bribed, or redirected. There is no self-interest to appeal to. There is only the family and everything outside of it. So, what made Leatherface this way? The short answer, everything did. A mother who died on a killing floor. A supervisor who threw a newborn in a dumpster. A face that made him a target before he could speak. A family that found him useful and called that love. A slaughterhouse that taught him the only language anyone ever let him keep. He is not evil in the way we want monsters to be evil. He is not calculated. He is not free. Leatherface is what happens when every system a person encounters treats them as material rather than human. The slaughterhouse did it. The town did it. The family did it. The only difference between Thomas Hewitt and the cattle he killed every day at Blair Meat Company is that someone decided he was more useful on this side of the bolt gun. That is not a horror story. That is an American one. And the reason that farmhouse still terrifies people 50 years later is not because of the chainsaw. It is because somewhere underneath that mask, there is a man who just wanted someone to keep him.